I think there's three groups of people that at this point in the season might be jumping on to learn about LockLeft. So I think we probably have a good amount of people that are currently running the LockLeft defensive system, and they want to improve it and get better at it and pick up some tips or some ways to execute a little bit better. So that's one. Group two that's probably on this webinar is someone that is coming to the end of their season. They're maybe going into the playoffs and they want a new wrinkle to maybe throw as a change-up defense or a switch-up defense as they get late into their season. And for that group of people, that'll be group two here in a moment. We'll see who you are. I think that this is one of the easiest and most effective secondary or out of a timeout or off of a made basket or free throw type of defenses to wrinkle in. Because the LockLeft, one of the great benefits of it as your primary defensive system is it takes so little practice time to implement and be able to execute that it can free you up to spend more time on player development, or if you're going into like a summer team or a youth team where you don't practice that much, it's an ideal defense for that. But that also makes it ideal as a secondary defense. I was actually working with a college team just this last week, and they have a defense they call Brown, and it's essentially the LockLeft. And we were talking about some tweaks they could make to it, and they spend 5 to 10 minutes of practice time on it 2 or 3 times a week, and they use it 4 or 5 times of practice to eat time off the clock, to kind of break a rhythm for the opponent, but primarily not to let your opponent run their stuff. So a lot of times when, a team's coming out after halftime or after a timeout, they've sketched up an ATO. And what the LockLeft does is it just blows up offenses that are overly scripted, or even like ATOs that they're trying to run. So if you're thinking about, man, I'm going against some teams here at the end of my season, and I would love to have a little wrinkle that they haven't seen before that I can just throw in as a change-up defense, as a rhythm change, the LockLeft would be great for that, and you can do it really, really quickly. So that'd be group two, or maybe you're group three. The group threes would be the ones that are a little bit LockLeft curious. It's like, man, I'm kind of thinking about next season. I'm thinking about my summer ball. I'm curious about this LockLeft. I haven't gone all in on it yet, and I want to learn a little bit more about it. I want to give you 3 principles that if I was taking a team that was not currently running the LockLeft and they wanted to use it as a change up in the postseason, or if they're like, man, how would I start if I wanted to run the LockLeft defense? This would be what we would want to do. The overarching principle of LockLeft is this: we want to start, speed, and lock the ball to smaller and smaller spaces on the floor, and always on the left-hand side. We want to start the ball there with whoever's initiating the offense in transition. We want to start to influence. We call it chasing the ball. We want to start to influence the ball more to the left-hand side of the floor. And so that's why I have this nifty little thing I wrote up for everybody. It's the first and most important thing that you must always do on the ball is whoever is guarding the ball, whether you run it out of a matchup, whether you run it out of a 1-3-1, whether you run it out of a man-to-man, whether you run it out of 2-3, any player that's on the ball must get that ball dribbled left immediately. No dribbles right and all dribbles left. So the ball always goes left. Very, very simple, whoever's on the ball. The second thing that you would do if you're going to put this in, and I have it written down for you as well, is you would just try to shrink the floor. And we always want the ball to have to be played in smaller and smaller spaces. So whoever's on the ball is going to be making the ball dribble left. Whoever's next to the ball, both to the right of the ball and to the left of the ball, it's their job to try to shrink the floor. And how we're going to do that is not by how we would guard the dribble, but how we want to influence the pass. If the ball's in the middle of the floor, we would rather the ball be on the left wing. If the ball's on the left wing, we'd rather the ball be in the left corner, because there's a smaller and smaller portion of the floor that the offense can play in. And so the 2 players next to the ball on the right and the left are going to help us shrink the floor by influencing a pass to the left. So if anyone finds himself 1 pass away to the right, they're in full deny. We don't want a pass to go to the right. That tends to get to the middle of the floor. That tends to get to the right-hand side of the floor, which allows a more open drive if we're always putting the ball left. It allows them to drive to the middle of the floor. But anyone that's to the left of the ball 1 pass away is sitting in the gap. Their job is to make sure that they're sitting on the drive line. If a gap defender is sitting on the drive line, what they're actually doing is encouraging a pass. And if we can get that pass to go from the middle of the floor to the left-hand side of the floor, from the left-hand side of the floor to the corner, and still have the person to the right of the ball denying the person to the left of the ball sitting in the gap, all of a sudden the ball has less space. And when the offense has less space, they have less options. Everybody knows offensively that when we get the ball to multiple sides of the floor, we're going to get defensive rotations. We're going to have advantage catches and long closeouts, double wide gaps. And so what the lock left is trying to do is take that away, start it, speed it, and lock it to the left-hand side. Where a lot of times a lock left defense might get in trouble is they don't have that defender in the gap, deep enough in the gap. And so that ball handler can attack an open stance and get into the heart of the defense, into the paint to the left hand, because we didn't encourage the pass left. We didn't do our job of shrinking the floor. Once we do our job of shrinking the floor, because remember, whoever's on the ball, let me pull it up again, your only job is nobody dribbles right. The ball only gets dribbled left. It's pretty simple for whoever it's on the ball. And remember, if you are next to the ball to the right or left, your job is to help shrink the floor, influence the ball more to the left-hand side, deny everything right, and sit in the gap to the left. Now we get to what players might do that are 2 passes away, what players might do on help side. Their job is to erase the rim. There's an interesting discussion in our Lock Left group chat. Have your fouls gone up or down since you implemented the Lock Left defense? The majority of teams do find that their foul rate goes down, which is the goal. The Lock Left, we do not want to have, we don't want to give up fouls. We want our foul rate to go significantly down. And the reason I bring this up is this. If we are doing our job shrinking the floor and getting drives from the low left wing and the left corner, oftentimes your foul rate will go down. But if we're not doing a good job of shrinking the floor, if we are allowing straight line drives and we're getting blown by at the top of the key as we are really open and locking the ball left and they get a runway, that's when the foul rate goes up. And so layer one, if you're just trying to start this thing, is you got to get the ball being dribbled left every single time. But if you don't quickly shrink the floor, you're going to have your foul rate go up, because anyone that's going to be 2 passes away is going to be the ones that are erasing the rim. And when we're erasing the rim, we are making sure that we are not actually rotating out to stop the ball outside the paint. It really is forming a wall at the midline with the lowest help defender in the smile or the charge circle. And the furthest help defender is going to be stepping up on the midline, right in the middle of the paint, just below the nail, with forming a wall of erasers to contest and not allow the ball to be swung to the opposite side of the floor. That is how we're going to start speed and lock the ball to the left-hand side of the floor. So that would be the simplest way to go ahead and put this in. I would introduce those 3 things to your players and then let them play and identify where you got in trouble. I've got a couple of other teaching points for everybody, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and open up for any questions, because it's very understandable and common that someone would ask a question. Now,